Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor, and I'm Chairman of the Planning Committee here at Fenland. Welcome to those members of the press and the public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind everyone to turn their mobiles and computers to silent and ensure when using the microphones the red light is on and then turned off when you finish speaking. Now we'll go to agenda item number 1. I'd like to ask member services, and it's Joe this afternoon, if we have any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies received today from Councillor Gershner. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, thank you, Joe. We'll now go to agenda item 2, which is urgent items. There are none. However, agenda item number 6 has been withdrawn. Moving swiftly on, agenda 3 is declarations of interest. Members' services will now go to each councillor in turn, and can you please state if you've anything to declare in relation to any agenda item this afternoon. Joe.
Thank you, Councillor Benny. Sorry.
Thank you, Joe. I'm a member of Charteris Town Council, but I take no part in planning. I always leave the room when planning is discussed. I'm also a member of the Note Layer IDB, which the Charteris application does drain into, and I have been lobbied on item 5, and that's it for today.
Members, is that an en-bloc declaration for agenda item 5? If that's the case, can I have a show of hands, please?
That's good.
Thank you, that's noted. Councillor Connor.
For that, nothing for that today, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs French.
A member of Marchtown Council, but I take no part. Member of 10 drainage boards.
Thank you. Councillor Mafferdon.
Member of Wisbech Town Council, but I take no part in planning. I'm a member of Wilney Drainage, Wisbech 100 Drainage Board, as well as Fenland Futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Joe. Member of Mainey Parish Council, and also I attend Charteris Town Council, but leave the room when discussed regarding planning, and I'm also on various drainage boards.
Thank you. Councillor Purser.
Yes, thanks. I'm a member of Marchtown Council, but I don't take any part at all in any planning issues at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yep, thank you, Joe. Now we'll go to the main part of the meeting. Members should only make a proposal on a planning application when invited to do so. However, I'll be initially asking if anybody is going to propose the officer's recommendation. Clearly, if no proposal is forthcoming, or if that proposal fails, I'll be then looking for an alternative proposal. Members are reminded that any such proposal should be accompanied by policy, planning reasons for going against the officer recommendation. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Nikki Carter. She's the Senior Development Officer here at Fenland to present application F/YR23/0697. It's FDL application, part of anyway, agenda item number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 4 is a full application for 152 dwellings, 16 of which are affordable, and associated works to include accesses off the A142. The site is approximately 10.1 hectares, encompassing a small area of land owned by the council to create a pedestrian cycle link, and forms a central parcel of land within the East Charteris strategic allocation. The application site is indicated in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It adjoins the A142 to the east. To the north is land which has the benefit of outline planning permission and the existing development of the Elms and Wenny Road Recreation Ground. To the west is Parkside, and to the south, land which has the benefit of full planning permission, along with an open field bounding the A142. The site consists of parcels of vacant grassland to the east and paddock land to the west, separated by vegetation and ditches. The site is covered by a tree preservation order, and there are some substantial trees within the western part of the site. And to the site boundaries, Excuse me. There are Grade 2 listed buildings at Parkside and Wenny Road, and the site incorporates the northern section of the historic parkland associated with Manor House. This is private land with no formal public access, aside from public rights of way around the site as indicated, affording views across it. East Chatteris Broad Concept Plan was approved by Planning Committee in 2017. It sets a framework for the delivery of the wider allocation and indicates key proposals for the site. The composite plan within this is shown here, which indicates key features, character areas, connectivity, constraints and opportunities. Design principles were also set out within the plan. This slide shows the application site in relation to the approved developments to the north, indicated in green, and to the south, indicated in blue. The green area has outline planning permission, with access proposed from the elms to the west and emergency access to Green Park north of the site. There was a condition imposed requiring a sudden vehicular access to the site subject of this application. However, an application to remove this access and retain the cycle footpath link only was resolved to grant by Planning Committee in December. The blue area has full planning permission for 93 dwellings, with 2 accesses off Wenny Road. A condition ensures that vehicular and footway link to the application site is provided prior to the occupation of the 75th dwelling, ensuring connectivity between the two. The proposed site layout is detailed on this slide. The primary and emergency accesses are via the A142, further details of which will be shown on the next slide. The primary access road leads west through the site. Secondary access roads, including an emergency access to the development site to the south. Shared surface and private roads lead south from the primary and serve the majority of the dwellings. There are footpaths along the side, the primary and secondary roads, and through the central areas of amenity space, leading west to the open space within which there is a local equipped area for play. 3-metre wide pedestrian and cycle paths are provided through the open space leading to Wenny Road Recreation Ground and from the emergency access to the development site to the north. Links are also provided to the elms, public rights of way, and the Wenny Road development. There is a landscape buffer around the site, and the existing trees are predominantly being retained, including 3 veteran trees. Existing ponds and ditches are also being retained. There is a proposed detention basin in the northeastern corner of the site and swale corridor along the northern boundary within the open space. The triangular area of open space to the south is proposed to be reptile habitat with restricted access. The primary access to the site is off the A142, and with a Ghost Island junction located at approximately the centre of the site's frontage, and a secondary emergency access is proposed north of this. This will be gated to prevent use by anyone other than the emergency services, including pedestrians and cyclists. There are public rights of way to the north and south of the accesses, which cross the A142. To mitigate the widening of the road, uncontrolled crossings with refuge islands are proposed, along with 2-metre wide surface footpaths immediately off the A142, and signage is proposed to warn motorists of pedestrians crossing. Given the number of dwellings proposed, street scenes rather than individual house types are detailed on this and the next few slides, which provide a representation of the overall design and character of the development. Street scene AA shows the dwellings and block of flats closest to the A142, which form the entrance to the site. All dwellings are 2-storey, with heights varying from approximately 8.9 to 9.7 metres. They are predominantly detached and semi-detached, though there are also 3 terraces and a block of 8 flats. There are a range of 2 to 5 bedroom dwellings, each with associated amenity space, parking, cycle storage and PV panels. There are a number of house types of traditional design with a range of architectural detailing to provide interest. There is a consistency of appearance across the scheme to ensure that a sense of place is established. External materials proposed for the dwellings are indicated as being a mix of light red, red orange and buff bricks along with render, and dark grey and red concrete tiles. Photo 1 shows the site from the A142, the ditch forming the northern boundary of the site. Photos 2 and 3 are taken from within the site, facing towards the existing dwellings on the elms. Photos 4 and 5 show a view across and towards the paddock land to the west of the site, which forms the northern part of the historic parkland. Photo 6 shows the link to the elms, which has recently been resurfaced, and 7 to the recreation ground looking towards Wenny Road. The application site forms part of the East Chatteris strategic allocation, and the proposal is considered to be in broad compliance with the approved BCP. It is acknowledged that the BCP intended that the access to the site would be on Wenny Road. However, it does not preclude or specifically state that access should not be obtained from the A142. There are no highway safety concerns or technical reasons for refusal regarding the access to the site being via the A142, and as such, no harm identified which would otherwise prevent the development proceeding in the form proposed. It is acknowledged that part of the historic parkland landscape will be lost to allow this development to come forward. However, it is considered that the public benefits of the scheme would outweigh the less than substantial harm identified in terms of heritage. The application site is located in flood zone 1, however parts of the site are at a high to medium risk of surface water flooding. Details submitted within the application demonstrate that surface water from the proposed development can be managed, and as such, subject to conditions, surface water flood risk is considered to have been satisfactorily addressed. The application proposes 10.5% on-site affordable housing, equating to 16 units, contributions of £2,000 per plot towards education and healthcare, and further contributions towards highway and public right-of-way mitigation. The overall offer is considered acceptable given the viability situation with this allocated housing site. The development raises no concerns in respect of housing mix, design considerations, impact on visual amenity of the area, residential amenity, health and wellbeing, or ecology, subject to conditions, and the scheme is broadly compliant with the approved BCP regarding these matters. Overall, and on planning balance, the proposal is considered to meet the Council's aspirations for this allocated site, which is expected to deliver needed housing for the district. As such, it's recommended to grant the application.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nikki. We have one set of speakers on this application. I'd now like to invite Tim Northey. He's the applicant, and Asha Davey, a highways consultant, to make their presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes, obviously, between you. Obviously, start when you feel free to and able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Abbey Mill Homes originally submitted this planning application in June 2023, and over this time has worked positively with your officers to resolve all technical concerns associated with this proposal. This has enabled officers to be able to recommend approval of this planning application to this committee today. The application cites a long-standing housing allocation in the Fenland local plan and the final part of the East Chatteris strategic allocation that remains to be consented. It will deliver a wide range of new housing opportunities at Chatteris, from those suitable for first-time buyers through to families, including affordable homes comprising rental and shared ownership tenures. The proposed dwellings have been designed to high environmental standards and will incorporate integrated renewable technologies to minimise their carbon footprint, adding high-quality, sustainable and affordable homes to the local housing market. The proposal has been designed to ensure extensive connectivity to surrounding areas, so as to ensure the use of non-motorised modes of transport. This includes pedestrian cycle links through to the Wenny Road recreation ground and to the Elms, and onto the Wenny Road, providing safe and convenient infrastructure connections to local services and facilities. Pedestrian and cycle links to the adjoining consented residential sites have also been designed into the scheme to ensure permeability between the residential areas once constructed, but avoids creating vehicular cut-through to the detriment of residents' environmental quality. The application proposes extensive open space provision that amounts to some 25% of the total land area, which has been designed to be multifunctional and deliver significant benefits. Together with formal and informal recreation opportunities for future residents, these land areas will function to provide sustainable drainage solutions, as well as biodiversity enhancements, with green corridors retained and enhanced across the site, connecting to newly created habitats. This application has been the subject of extensive amendments and dialogue over the course of nearly 3 years, with the local planning authority, the highway authority, the LLFA and other statutory consultees to ensure a technically sound and high quality development proposal is secured on this site. As officers have stated in their report, the benefits of this proposal outweigh any identifiable harm, and there are not considered to exist justifiable reasons to refuse this application. We therefore hope that members of this committee are able to support their officer's recommendation, following their extensive efforts to work with the applicant on this proposal. I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Asher Davey, our highway engineer from Glanville Consultancy, who's advised on this project from the outset.
Thank you. As Tim mentioned, we've been involved. As Tim mentioned, we've been involved in the project for around 3.5 years, looking at the access strategy and sustainable travel works. As presented earlier, all vehicular access will be taken off the A142 by a new guide-style and right turn lane, constructed fully in accordance with standards set out in the design manual for roads and bridges for a 60-mile-an-hour design speed. Emergency access will be provided further to the north, as required by Cambridgeshire's Highway Design Guide for developments of more than 100 dwellings. We discussed the principle of these works through 2 pre-application submissions with the Highway Authority in May 2022 and July 2022, with 2 minor amendments made following those discussions to deliver new pedestrian crossings with refuge islands on the A142. But the Highway Authority confirmed that they would have no objection to the principle of the access, subject to Stage 1 road safety audits and junction capacity modelling. We subsequently provided both of these items through the application and addressed any concerns raised in the Stage 1 road safety audit prior to submission. We undertook junction capacity modelling using existing traffic flows on the A142 plus committed development traffic and the proposed development traffic. This identified negligible queuing at the site access with a lot of residual capacity in the junction. In highway safety and junction capacity terms, the proposed access arrangements have been found acceptable by the local highway authority, and we hope that members of the committee will be able to agree with their local highway authority's recommendations.
Right, thank you very much for your presentation. Members, questions, clarifications to the gentleman. Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. You've made big play of non-motorised transport, but we live in a rural area. Chatteris is my ward. This adjoins my old ward, and my current ward butts up to this. You've only got the access off the A142 into here. As a BCP, which I know it's not, the access to this should be off Wenny Road. We live in a rural area, and as much as you can put cycleways in, if you drive to Ely on any morning of the week where there's a footpath and a cycleway, there is nobody hardly on it. People use cars in this area. Now you've got these houses, you are going to have 400 plus vehicle movements a day, and there will be multiple movements of vehicles per day coming in and out of here, because people come home from work, they realise, like I did this morning, I hadn't got any milk, you jump in the car and you go and fetch it. We are over a mile from the nearest supermarket, so people are going to use their cars. Now, I sat on that bypass last night for a good half an hour looking at the traffic, and I don't consider that junction safe. So I don't think that this is a good access. What have you done to try and link in with the other development? I fully support the development. I think the development is right. I think it's allocated land. I fully get that. But to bring this out onto the A142, a 60-mile-an-hour road, and I know the reports say it's safe, but I'm a local councillor and I sit there, and this isn't NIMBYism, this is safety I'm looking at. And I really think you're wrong on your access. Is there another access you can bring into this? And how do you feel if your children were having to go on that route to take them to school every morning in a car? Because I would not be happy with that with my children. How do you feel with your children?
So in terms of the access options, obviously the land to the north, which is the council-owned land, has been granted through the Elms, so that access comes through there. This committee in December obviously approved a Section 73 application that removed the requirement for a connection through to our site as well. So that there is that variation that's already happened in terms of obviously the BCP. In terms of land to the south, originally the land was under the ownership, or sorry, under the control of a single developer. That relationship fell apart between the landowners and the developer, who then obviously took control of the land to the south, which they brought forward as their application there. But there's an indication that they'd be, because of the relationship, that they look to do their own thing and ransom the remaining land area. So we would be obviously in a ransom situation, which would mean that the site couldn't potentially come forwards. Certainly it would raise viability issues as well. But as a developer, we also have to be able to, because there's no guarantee that site to the south will actually come forwards. So we as a developer, to actually ensure that it's deliverable, have to make sure that we have our own independent access to the public highway. Obviously for our site, the only opportunity is to come off the A142. And as Asher said, we've been through a thorough and comprehensive process with the local highway authority. We did pre-applications at the very outset to ensure that that was a feasible and viable option, and it's been designed to safety. It's been subject to a road safety audit. It's been subject to full the county's design guides. That all safety issues have been assessed, and that it's to a standard that shouldn't raise safety concerns. So obviously the highway authority wouldn't be looking. We've been through for 3+ years in terms of highways and the detailed design there. And as we stand today, they have no objection to it, and they're not concerned with any safety issues. It's been tracked, it's been assessed from a safety perspective. So I don't know, Asher, if you've got anything to add, but yeah, there are no concerns that are raised from the highway authority anyway.
Yeah, and there is also, sorry, I mean, you talk about access over the land. The piece to the south belongs to Martin Jackson. I know Martin. He has put applications in to develop that land. I'm certain that because he owns several bits of land, he's selling up. I'm certainly you could do a deal with him to bring an access in on there, but that's not what we've got in front of us, and I fully understand that. But you say you've worked with people. I think there would be a deal there if you could do it. But we're looking at what we've got here today, and as much as you say it's compliant, I have very serious concerns about this. So does Chatteris Town Council. I spoke to one of the other councillors. I wasn't at the meeting because I don't attend them when the planning was discussed. But it was unanimous from Chatteris Town Council. They are not happy with this access because it is dangerous to put this out here. It's going to put a community within a community because it's not connected back to the town. And as much as you put footpaths in to fetch a pint of milk, who on a cold February day is going to walk for half an hour to go and fetch a pint of milk? They will use their cars. All this sustainable transport is fine, but it doesn't work in reality.
Sorry to stop you, Councillor, of any in your tracks, but we're just questions. It's questions. Yeah. So
Yeah.
could we soon have a question? Thanks.
I mean, okay, we'll get there. So if this is approved today, are you going to work to look to bring another access in with one of the other landowners, which would certainly please the local councillors that we have here? Is that something you would do? And also with the previous 93 applications, there's 2 accesses into this site. Are you looking to work with those to try and bring those together as a whole, so this land can be used the access through the other 93 on Winnie Road?
Thank you. So obviously we do have an emergency access arrangement to the Wenny Road site, but as I say, at this moment in time, that link doesn't exist. So there is, I suppose, a position where there is a link being provided, certainly for pedestrian cyclist opportunity. At the moment, it's not proposed as a vehicular access, but I suppose there could be scope in the future where we could look at varying those details and looking at that, but it would be subject to further scrutiny from the highway authority in terms of obviously what the impacts would be on the Wenny Road, the loading on that road in terms of creating, vehicles directly accessing that as well. So there is, I suppose, a future arrangement where that could happen, but at the moment, obviously, it is an emergency access position. So there is a proposal that could, there could be change in the future. So I couldn't say we could discount that. So
I think we just better cover where we're going with that one.
Okay, Councillor Marks, then I'll come in then.
Thank you. Gentleman to your left mentioned capacity you said it's well within capacity. What do you actually see the maximum capacity then? Having sat there last night along with Councillor Benny and Councillor Connor, we watched the traffic there yesterday, and to see most vehicles were slowing down coming out of another junction and having to slow down. I'm concerned to hear you saying about capacity. So what do you believe would be the capacity, maximum capacity there?
So the maximum capacity it's always dependent on the actual design of the junction itself. In this case, we have
Clear then on the design of the junction you've got there today.
yeah. So there is a lot of residual capacity. There's queuing of no more than one vehicle at a time through that junction, turning right into the sites. We've also undertaken junction capacity modelling of some of the other junctions either side of the access on the Wenny Road A142 junction and the A142 New Road junctions to the north. Both of those we've assessed with junction modelling software, which demonstrates that there is an increase in queuing as part of the developments, but there's no significant, no severe impact on the operation of those junctions.
And what about the vehicles travelling along that junction, along that road? We saw last night firsthand vehicles having to slow because vehicles were either turning left or right off that road, and they were slowing, and some were having to actually stop at some on occasions. So obviously you're now releasing more vehicles out into that roadway, both left and right. So what's that going to cause?
Well, it will still have the same impact in terms of there will still be some vehicles slowing when people are turning left into the access, but it is still through routes for traffic, so it's not going to severely impact the flow and operation of that junction. We've got 123 movements in the morning peak hour of 8 to 9 and 103 in the evening peak hour of 5 to 6, which is one vehicle every 30 seconds or so. Which is, and there's plenty of gaps in that period, in that time period, in which vehicles could judge whether it's safe or not to continue along their routes or turn left or right into the access.
So just to clarify, you're saying there's 103 movements, what, per hour, or yeah, it must be per hour. And that's what you've already done. Sorry, that's the audit you've already done, or is that what you're expecting to be?
So that's what the development will generate in terms of additional vehicle movements.
And it's been modelled as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and that has been modelled. The traffic impact of that has been modelled to demonstrate that there is sufficient capacity in the network.
Okay, thank.
I can also add, obviously, that's been scrutinised by the Highway Authority as well, so they're satisfied with the work that we've produced and submitted in terms of that side of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, as it's been mentioned before, I was with Councillor Benny and Councillor Marks in a vehicle yesterday. We were there, I suppose, 25 past 4, I suppose, till about, I don't know, I suppose 10 past, 5, I think, something like that. Good that. Yeah, it might be an hour past 5. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? So we were there and we saw a couple of very, very near accidents there. One vehicle, as he was turning right into the road, the previous junction, he pipped. The others were stopping on a regular basis, weren't they? So, and the traffic at that time of the night, which one would expect, was fairly heavy. It wouldn't have been obviously as heavy at 1 o'clock in the morning, would it? But to all those, and that, in my opinion, that is without any anaerobic traffic, which is an anaerobic digester up the road further towards Meeple Way. There's no tractors at all. There's nothing, and that traffic was every few seconds there was of it. So my view is, I think that, like Councillor Benny, I think, and Councillor Marks, I think it was not a good idea to come out on A142, to be fair. It's really dangerous. and I'd be very, very worried if I had to go in there to turn right or turn left, as the case may be, whatever. It'd be just worrying me. So I know it's more of not really, it is a question. So I just do really feel that this should go, you know, what else can you do? Just please give us some comfort. I know you've helped Councillor Benny by saying, answer some of the questions, but what can you give me any comfort on? Because I don't know, it's very, very difficult, sir.
So, well, if I can just add that obviously as part of the there's a ghost island going into the site to enable obviously vehicles to turn in. There's signage going up on the 142 in terms of there's 2 pedestrian refuges going in to enable people to. So that I suppose will have an implication in terms of driver behaviour as well, because it's an indication that there are pedestrian users crossing the road. But again, you say the visibility, that's all been assessed in terms of the safety standards and things, in terms of access in, access out. And with those sort of those sort of realignments of the road, there's a bit of widening works taking place. They should all help in terms of users of that awareness in terms of other users of the road and affect their, you know, basically driver behaviour along that route.
What worries me, thank you, but what worries me, it's a 60-mile-an-hour road. That's the problem. Sorry, I'll come back then. I'll reiterate. A worry for me, it's a 60-mile-an-hour road. And people where we sat there last night, we didn't see them being, a lot of them being aware, did we? As we wouldn't have picked that sort of thing. So I think, you know, just a matter of opinion, I think it's just an accident waiting to happen, really, unfortunately. But we are where we are. Anybody else at all? Councillor Marks?
Do we actually have a proper drawing of the junction itself that's being proposed? I know we had one at the bottom. That's from here, trying to read measurements and stuff is fairly difficult. So what I believe you're proposing, from what I can understand, so you'll have one lane either way and a centre lane where you'll be holding the traffic. So can we go through the measurements of what those are? So the 2 outer lanes will be, okay, so there'll be 3.5, okay, and then the centre holding lane.
Sorry, Mr. Daly, do you just want to take?
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the 3 lanes will be 3.5 metres wide, and the right turn lane will be 3.25 metres. And that is compliant with the national design standards in the Design Manual of Roads and Bridges, which is applied to all trunk roads, A roads and motorways in the UK.
Okay, and then it will just be chevrons along there. There'll be no centre islands or anything else.
No.
Thank you.
Right, anybody? Oh, Councillor Benny, thank you.
Did you consider putting a lane to allow vehicles to slow down and move out of the way, and also for vehicles coming out of the site to build up speed before they join the carriageway? Or was there any looking at speed reductions along there? As a council, we looked several years ago as a town council to try and get speed reductions down there because of the danger on the new road side, on the new road junction, which is further down, and that has a speed camera on it. And we couldn't get that reduced at that time. So was that something you looked at, putting the lanes in and maybe doing a speed reduction at the same time?
The speed reduction was something we discussed with the Highway Authority through the first 2 pre-application discussions, but they made it clear that they weren't keen to reduce the speed limit along that road as part of the development. So it's something we've looked into, but not something that's been asked to be implemented by the Highway Authority. And then in terms of the deceleration lanes and taper lanes, you can see on the site access there is a slightly wider taper as you turn left out, so that gives vehicles a chance to build up more speed as they're exiting the junction. And the right turn lane itself will have a taper at the end, which will allow vehicles to slow before they enter that lane.
Certainly.
With respect, we've got that at New Road and it doesn't work.
Councillor Marks.
As you've already heard, three of us yesterday sat at that exact spot. We looked at it. There is a lot of overgrowth there. Are you looking to cut all of that back? And then who would be then maintaining that going forward?
Yes, all the vegetation within the visibility display, a distance of 218 metres to the north and 215 to the south, all of that vegetation would be cleared, and there's the visibility display would pass over primarily land within the Highway Authority's control, so the Highway Authority would be able to maintain it. There's part of Abbey Mills land which the visibility display passes over, that will be dedicated to the Highway Authority to allow them to maintain that vegetation.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to move to a different tact. I think perhaps we've gone as far as we can with this highways with you. So are you looking to have a maintenance company do all this repairs to the hedges, exactly what Councillor Marks has said, and also the roads? How are you?
So there are obviously common areas where there need to be a management company. The roads are to adoptable standards. They could be adopted. We went through quite a detailed design process with the local highway authority to ensure that they were to those standards, so they could be adopted. But there are obviously common areas where that there would need to be a management company in place on the site. So yeah, it could be the roads in the development could be adopted.
Thank you. Councillor French, thank you.
Thank you. Whilst you were discussing with highways on adopting roads, are you aware that the new policy, if they adopt your roads, you have to insist that all the roads are 20 miles an hour?
Yeah, we are aware of the requirement for all new roads to be 20 miles an hour, and there are speed reduction features within the development, including raised tables, chicanes, and geometry, which basically limits the speed which vehicles can travel through the sites. So it's all been designed in accordance with their standards.
Right. Any more questions at all? Councillor Miffordon, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. During your presentation, you mentioned about prioritising, I'm not sure if that's the word you used, first-time buyers. What plans have you put in place to stop developers from snapping up this new development? As we know, Chatteridge is a growth town, and our emphasis is to keep it as it is.
So yeah, so in terms of that reference, that was to providing smaller properties. So they're obviously the smaller end of so more affordable for first-time buyers. There are, as mentioned, affordable housing with this scheme, shared ownership, so that makes it more accessible for people in terms of getting on the housing ladder. There are rental properties as well, so that's for people who are on the housing register. So there's a full variety of house types, which again, to ensure that it complies with the council's housing policy mix, we've everything from 2-bed up to 5-bedroom homes, but main emphasis has been on the 2 and 3 beds where the greatest housing need exists in the district based upon the evidence. So yeah, so there's a variety of house types and tenures, providing opportunities for people in the housing market effectively.
And also, you talked about the roads being brought up to an adoptable standard for highways to adopt. How long between the completion of development do you think you will hand the roads over to highways? Because sometimes we've had situations where we've had developments being done and the ironworks is taken out of the ground because the roads have not been finished yet. So what is the length of the development, the process?
The development programme, probably I'd guess somewhere about 3 years. So from starting construction through to finishing it. So I'd imagine for 152 homes, about a 3-year development programme. So yeah, sometime after that, really. If I can just add a final point. Obviously, you say I appreciate obviously council's concerns about the access, but obviously at this moment in time, that is the only access opportunity that we have at the moment is off the A142, as I think I originally said. So there is no road access that exists to adjoining land areas that we at this moment in time can actually secure through the site. So that is effectively for this site the opportunity that exists.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Marks, and I'll come after that. Thank you.
Regarding construction, again, coming onto the A141, 142, and seeing other construction sites as well. What policy are you going to have in place for not bringing mud out onto the roads, for number one? Number two, you're going to have a lot of slow vehicles pulling out onto that highway over a period of time, which are loaded lorries, obviously coming in and out. And what policy are you going to put in place also for holding lorries that want to come in there overnight? Are you going to be putting in parking and stuff on site immediately, so we're not going to have lorries, because they will stop on that side of the road? So what policies are you putting in place, please?
So there is a condition proposed for a construction management plan. So obviously we will have all the standard process like wheel washing, and obviously we're using a lot of, which basically try and use most of the spoil on the site for raising and lowering levels across the site. So hopefully there won't be as many movements of loaded lorries as perhaps on other sites. But we will follow obviously, protocol in terms of ensuring that there's no mess created on the roads. There's no, the visibility displays will have to be put in at the outset to ensure that obviously that good visibility exists for lorries to pull out as well. So we will, have a thorough, detailed plan in place prior to construction commencing that obviously the council are able to control and ensure that we comply with too.
Thank you.
Councillor Benny?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah. I mean, if you get approval on this afternoon, when would you be looking to start? Because a lot of building sites are shutting down, building costs are going up, and really the retail price of houses is not keeping pace with the development. It's getting harder for developers to make money, and the big boys are shutting sites down. I've been reading this in the news. Have you got plans in place for somebody to start this, or is this something that you're going to sit on for several years, please?
Well, we are a house builder ourselves, so obviously, yeah, we're an end developer. So our plans, I mean, obviously there is, if obviously a resolution is granted today, there is still the legal agreement to be done as well, which has time implications and obviously discharge of pre-commencement conditions. But we'd obviously hope, housing market allowing, that we would start construction sooner rather than later. So hopefully at some point, later on this year, depending on how all these other things factor into the timings.
Yeah, just putting a bit of meat on Councillor Marks's comments. We obviously the 142 is a busy road, and as Councillor Marks alluded to, we don't want any debris on there at all. And developers, as far as we're all aware here, do not adhere to that. We go out many times. Councillor French and I have been out, and many other councillors have been out, and we've seen mud on the road. Nobody wants to really get involved. Planning doesn't, highways don't really want to, and the police just don't for some reason or another. So I want some comfort on this. Yeah, you've got a wheel wash facility on there, but I would also really strongly advise that we have a sweeper on site all the time, so we don't get any debris on there. Wheel washers are only that it's still. They do wash the wheels, obviously, and the under part of the chassis sometimes, but a sweep along there a couple of times a day, or once a day, or twice a day, or 3 times a day, depends on what the conditions obviously are, winter or summer or whatever, would give me some sort of comfort. So can you give me a cast iron guarantee a sweeper will be there 24 hours a day?
So yeah, we can look to include that within our construction management plan. We follow best practice, so in terms of ensuring that, say, discharge of mud onto the roads doesn't happen. So yeah, we will, if that's something the council particularly want to look, we will look to include that within the condition, basically, that the council will then discharge.
I just feel it's imperative that happens on this particular occasion, bearing in mind past performances from other developers. Thank you. Anyone else at all before we get these kind gentlemen go? No, thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, thank you. I'd now like to invite members to put questions to officers. But before we do, I'd like to invite, we also have James Stringer from Cambridgeshire County Council. Welcome, James, from County Council Highways team. So he's happy and willing to answer questions that members will most certainly have regarding highways. So there we go. So there we go, members. Councillor French, kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. Sorry, I can't really see you. I have, great respect for Cambridge County Council, having served on their Highways and Transport Committee for over 8 years. But I cannot believe that they do not support a speed reduction. There have been several accidents down there, RTCs down there over the years. Unfortunately, County Council only record fatalities, which questioned us for many, many years. It took me over 20 years to get a reduction on the A141 at Westray. Can you tell me why you will not support a reduction?
Thank you, Councillor French. In terms of speed reductions, I think when we did the pre-app in 2022, what our view was that we wouldn't support a limited speed limit reduction. So what we wouldn't look to support, and this is supported by the government's position in terms of their DFT note on setting local speed limits, is that reducing the speed limit for a particular location or a particular hazard isn't that effective. So dropping the speed limit just for this junction probably wouldn't have the level of impact that we would like it to have. In terms of dropping the speed limit more widely along that stretch, I think that certainly is something that could be considered. And obviously things have moved on slightly in the world since 2022. And as a previous member of H&T committee, the county's H&T committee was yesterday, and funnily enough, there was a paper on road safety. So, and we are, as a county, looking very closely at National Highways' trial of a reduction from 60 to 50 mile an hour on the A47 that is being imposed with average speed cameras. And we've said publicly that if we see good results, good compliance from there, then we will look potentially to replicate similar schemes on many of our A roads in Cambridgeshire, including the A142 between Ely and Chatteris. So I certainly think dropping the speed limit from 60 to 50 is an option. I wouldn't rule it out. But what I would say is, like I said, dropping it just for potentially 100, 150 metres around that junction probably wouldn't work. But something slightly wider between Wenny Road and where it drops to 40 on the approach to Slade End, certainly something that we can look at. And if this is approved today and we receive it as a application for a 278 agreement, it will need to go through further assessments in terms of road safety for future stages. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't rule out that reducing the speed limit may well come out of that process.
Thank you, Councillor French. Continue, please. Thank you.
With regard to dropping the speed limit, last year you dropped the speed limit on the A141 from Gall Road to Mill Hill. I don't think it's made much difference because there was an RTC there this afternoon at Gall Road. So whether you drop it to 20 miles an hour, stupid drivers, etc., etc. But I certainly would look, as I said, having been on county transport for many years, you've dropped all the speed limits further up the A141 at Granford Corner up into Ringsend. That was reduced. So I can't see why the 142 cannot be reduced.
Councillor Marks.
Thank you. As you've already heard numerous times, we sat there last night, watched the speed. That is a red route, is it not? The length of the road from Chatteris to Ely?
We signed it as a high casualty route, a red route. I think we put those signs up in 2012, something like that, maybe a bit later. But yeah, it's advertised as a high casualty route, and we've signed it as such. Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's number one question. Number two question: when did the actual traffic surveys, take part? Because you mentioned 2022, that was not quite at the height of COVID, but an awful lot of people hadn't gone back to work at that point. Last night, it was a very, very busy road. So could you give us a rough idea of when that survey took place, please?
Yes, it was. It was July 2022 when they did the survey.
Okay, that's number two. Thank you for that. Number three, if there is not a concern regarding this part of the road being dangerous, can you tell me why we've got a speed camera less than a quarter of a mile further up on another junction? Which obviously there is an issue because I turn up to Maney most days, and I don't understand the logic then being told this is safe when we have a speed camera with less than or less than a quarter of a mile up the road.
From my perspective, I never class any road as safe. I think the highway environment is a risk environment. If you were to make a road safe, you'd have to take every car and every pedestrian off of it. So every road has a risk. Some roads obviously have a higher risk than others. A roads, high speed roads being number one. There obviously is an issue with speed compliance. That's why the speed camera is there. That's confirmed by the speed survey that was done in July 2022. I think the 85th percentile for southbounds is 63 miles an hour. So, 85% of vehicles going southbound are exceeding the speed limit. So clearly there is a compliance issue with speed. That's why the speed camera is there. So I'd certainly.
Sorry, can you just going south? So going towards Chatras. Or going
south, so where the ATC survey is done, the southbound will be towards Meeple. Northbound will be towards Slade End.
Moving on from there then, thank you, Councillor Marks, that's a very pertinent question. What time was, in the day was this speed survey carried out? Because as I intimated earlier, at 1 o'clock or 6 in the morning, it wouldn't be anywhere near as busy as it would be between 8 and 9, or 7:30 and 9. And when we were there from, I don't know, say hypothetically 4:15 till 5:30, would it? That was the most. So were they carried out in that particular time? Because if they weren't, it wouldn't have been a good reflection on how it is now, would it? So can you give us some indication of that?
So the survey undertaken was an automatic traffic counter survey. So that's where you get the rubber loops that are laid on the carriageway, and they're left there for a week. So it's the average effectively over a whole week. So it takes the whole 24-hour period over 7 days.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Betty, thank you.
If this was London, we would be busy 24 hours a day. Chatras is not. So all that traffic that you count is pushed into a very short period of time. So the average is low, but at peak times it's very, very high. And this is what we're seeing as local councillors. We sat there, I see this every day. I come out at Wenny Junction. If I'm going to Maney, I don't go down New Road. I always go up to Wenny and come back, so I don't have to cross the traffic. I know there's been accidents on there. Your records maybe don't show that, but as we know, there are accidents that come along. So this data is very skewed when it doesn't take into account the peaks. Accidents don't happen at 2 in the morning very often. They do happen, I know, but most of them will happen when there's a volume of traffic. And this data that we're using is skewed because it's not giving a true reflection at busy times, which is where this data should be looked at. Is there anything we can do to change that?
In terms of collision data, this is data that comes from the police. It's not data that's collected by the Highway Authority. Obviously, we use that data and we receive that data from the police. But this is data called Stats 19 data. So when the police attend an incident or an incident is reported to the police, obviously the police don't necessarily attend every incident anymore. They take certain information, and that forms the basis of the Stats 19 data. Now, the police only record this data if there is a personal injury collision. So obviously there is a perception amongst members that there are more incidents that come out in the data. That there will be, because there is no data collected by the police or any other organisation on incidents that don't result in personal injury. So damage only incidents, someone going to the back of someone, they don't get recorded. So, and we have no way of collecting that information. Unfortunately, if someone clips someone and they exchange insurance details on the side of the road and drive off, Nobody is there from any organisation, whether that's a local government or a police or any other organisation. No one's there to collect that information. So it is a very well known under recording in terms of accident data, collision data. Interestingly enough, the UK government have just released their road safety strategy last week or the week before, and one of the aims from the strategy is to better link the data collected by the DFT through Stats 19 and A&E data, because if there is minor injuries that haven't been reported to the police, but then those people present themselves at A&E with whiplash or whatever it might be, then that's been identified by the UK government as a potential solution to try and solve this issue by trying to link Stats 19 data to A&E admissions to try and get a better picture of these slight incidents as they're recorded in Stats 19. So completely concede, there is, and it is with every application across the whole country, there is an under-reporting of slight collisions. So the perception of the near misses that you see and your residents see, absolutely, but there's no way of capturing that data, unfortunately.
Councillor Marks.
Thank you. This is probably one a bit more to the planning officers, hopefully just to give you a bit of a break. However, okay, so 2 miles up the road, we've got the digester, which for 3 months of the year, on average, takes, I'm hoping you'll be able to give me a figure, because obviously they've just put in for planning, tractors and trailers going in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the data this gentleman has already given us is a bit skew, because we've got 3 months of the year where we've got a lot more larger tractors and trailers coming along that route. Are you able to give us what figure that goes into the digester? Because I know they have put in recently for planning.
Now, I'm taking this from comments I received on the current application that we've got ongoing, but the indication is that there's already a cap on the vehicle movements from that site, which is a maximum of 192 way vehicle movements that shall enter and leave the site in any one day.
Thank you. So we've got another 192 movements in and out of there. And the likelihood is quite a few of them, because I see them all the time. Fast tracks coming down the 141, 142, obviously, and that's for sort of like 3 months. So that really needs factoring in again to the same figures that we've got from the gentleman there from the council. And one last one from yourself. Last night, very interestingly, we actually pulled onto the 142, and I would say at speed. But how quickly should a vehicle speed up? Because by the time you'd actually got up to 30, 40 mile an hour, we had 4 or 5 cars that were behind you. So what is the distance from coming out of a junction from a dead stop? Do you expect a vehicle to speed up along that road?
I honestly don't know. I think it probably depends on the driver and the car they're driving. I think in terms of, as I've explained, this section of the road is fast. It's 60 miles an hour. It's a national speed limit, and people do drive at 60 miles an hour. It's super elevated. That does encourage a slightly higher speed. What I would say is, in terms of installing the design in terms of the ghosted right, that does include 2 refuse islands on either end for the pedestrian crossings. Obviously, it will be street lit. The road will be widened. So you are slightly urbanising that environment, and you would expect average speeds, 85th percentile speeds, to come down slightly as a result of that, because drivers would perceive that they're driving through an environment where they might need to start paying slightly more attention. So you would expect 85th percentiles to come down, but even so, even at 55, 54, 53, whatever number you want to pluck out, it's still a very fast road. So coming out of there, you do need a gap. You do need quite a significant gap to be able to get out there, especially if you're turning right, obviously, because you've got to get across not only the northbound lane towards Slade End, the ghosted right, and then the lane you're trying to enter, the southbound lane. So that's what the modelling accounts for. The modelling creates 2 outputs. One is RFC, which is ratio to flow of capacity, and LOS, which is level of service. So for a development of this scale, it's not a big development in the grand scheme of things. You wouldn't expect the RFC figure, which is the one we usually look at, to be particularly high, because the volume of traffic that 152 houses creates, even in Chatteris, where we would expect obviously a higher proportion of people to travel by car than compared to Cambridge, for example, we wouldn't expect the RFC to be particularly high, because there just isn't that quantum of development. Where you would see the issue where with cars backing up because they can't find a gap, you'd expect to see that with the LOS figure, and that's given a rating between A and F. A being that it's very free flowing, F being that it's not. And the modelling for this junction suggests gives an LOS score of B. So the modelling, and obviously it's an industry standard piece of software that we use across the country in terms of modelling site accesses junctions. There's nothing coming out of the modelling that suggests that there is a particular capacity issue with this junction. Now, clearly, as you say, it's a very busy road, it's a very fast road, that can manifest itself as a safety issue, but in terms of capacity, none of the modelling suggesting that there is anything that we would have a reason to object on in terms of capacity.
Yeah, carry on.
Sorry, I was going a couple of questions to that then. Modelling is vehicles going onto a highway. Does it take into account that sweeping bend? So for one.
Yes. So when the transport consultants input the data, they will input the geometry of the junction, and then the software takes that into consideration. So the software will take into consideration the geometry of the junction, the lane widths, the environment, and also the traffic count data in terms of the volume.
And that's done by the applicant, not by yourselves as highways?
Yes, that's always done by the applicant. That's assessed by our transport assessment team, yeah.
Thank you. And number two, I can't think of anywhere else in the area that's allowing 100 or has got 155 properties, 154, onto a 60-mile-an-hour road. Can you tell me if there's anywhere else you can think of in the area that we've got that, please?
Not off the top of my head, no. I think from the Highway Authority's perspective, we would prefer this not to be coming off the A road. I think that's fair. I think, any logical person would understand the reasons why you'd maybe want to try and protect the A road for its primary purpose, which is to get movement of vehicles from population centre to population centre. Having said that, this junction is designed to DMRB standards. It's been through a road safety audit. There was only 3 issues identified. They've all been resolved. So this junction is very much designed to a standard, and there's no reason in terms of in the planning process for us to object to it. So, yeah, go on, sorry.
Sorry, just to clarify then, 2 sides to this: technical, fine; common sense, no.
I can understand why this application. I think the applicants put it quite nicely. At the end of the day, this application only has one boundary onto the public highway network, and that is the A142. So,
but that's down to the applicant. That's not down to safety or anything else. That's down to the applicant. Unfortunately, has landlocked himself. That shouldn't. At the end of the day, we're here today looking at public safety for the users. That, to me, is a material factor more than, unfortunately, the gentleman's got a piece of land that's landlocked. If he can't build his properties, because safety-wise, we've got to take in safety.
Yeah, I mean, the county council doesn't have a policy that says we should be restricting direct accesses off to on our A road network. Obviously, in the context of the National Planning Policy Framework, the Highway Authority can only really object on matters where we feel that there's an unacceptable impact on highway safety or a cumulative severe impact. So, in those bases, we don't think we could sustain an objection at an appeal on the pure basis that we would prefer not to have an access onto the A road. But yeah, so that is our position in terms of we don't feel we'd be able to sustain that objection.
Yeah, going on from that, yes, the speed survey was done in July 2022. Like we said, we've got the digester that's coming in for planning probably within the next few months. We've just got the crematorium, pet crematorium, and the crematorium just a couple of miles up the road. These will be taken into consideration. There'll be sort of slow moving traffic there, won't there? And also, the gentleman said, the agent said, or that there'll probably be 3 or 4 years before they're built at 50 houses a year. 3 years, then 4 years, time they get going, time that everything's sorted out. We've got to take into consideration then the Anglian water reservoir, because although it's a bit sparse, what they're what they're going to do, where they're going to put the roundabout and everything like that, that's to be finally decided, I think. Traffic will be coming down there, make no mistake, whether it's 50% of the traffic, 30% of the traffic, that will be added on, won't it? So that will make the road even busier, and perhaps that will be exactly the same time as the construction traffic going down there, down the A142, as those houses are probably looking to be finished and looking to be occupied. So, in my view, that needs to be taken into consideration. So the question is to you, have you taken that into consideration as it's a major infrastructure project by the government? Sorry.
Yes. In terms of Fens Reservoir, we are yet to be told by Anglo Water, or yet to be given any data from Anglo Water on what the impact on the local highway network will be. So we don't have that information yet in terms of what the trip generation might be, what the impact on local junctions might be. So therefore, it can't be. It's difficult to take it into consideration because we just don't have that data. I mean, if all the assessments are done by the highway consultant, if we turned around to the highway consultant and said, please go away and consider the impact of Fens Reservoir, there's no information out there for them to use. So, I mean, generally speaking, in planning, obviously it's very much a first come, first serve. This application is before you. Fens Reservoir hasn't gone to the Secretary of State yet as a formal submission. So, you know, if this development comes forward and then Angular Water are coming forward, then obviously it'll be for Angular Water to mitigate their impacts on the highway network. And they may need to do more as a result of the things that you're approving in terms of residential development in the area. So, you know, we've raised with Angular Water our significant concerns about capacity around Chatteris and certainly Slade End roundabout in terms of the impact of Fens Reservoir. We don't know what the trip generation is. We don't know what the trip distribution is, whether people are predominantly, in terms of the percentage, whether the majority of the traffic going to Fens Reservoir is going to be coming from March, or whether it's going to be coming up the A141 or 42 yet. We just don't know that information. In terms of other committed developments, in terms of the AD plant, I'm not aware that that was considered the AD plant. Again, it's, you know, this application's been in since 2023, I believe. So again, you know, the assessment was done before the AD extension came in. So it was very much, you know, they assessed the committed developments that were relevant at the time, which would have been the 1,000 houses to the south of Chatteris and a few other developments. But, you know, developments that have come since won't have been considered as part of the assessment. Having said that, there is a general growth in traffic, which is always considered in terms of capacity analysis, Tempro. So that will have considered, and that the inputs into that Tempro do consider local plan allocations and things like that. So there is an element of general growth in terms of how much was allocated in your local plans to Chatteris and March and other settlements will have been considered in Tempro, but very specific developments, and certainly the ones that have come after the submission of this application, won't have formed part of the capacity assessments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering that. Councillor Marks.
That being the case, you're saying there is growth, which of course there will be. Are you able to give us an idea before COVID as to how, or when COVID hit, as to how much traffic dropped back by to where we are today? Is that a figure you're able to give us?
The DFT, Department of Transport, they do lots of traffic counts on the network, and they do it. They'll do it. Well, they aim to do it every year. Very rarely happens, and then they apply general growth rates to each one. So I can have a look at, if you give me a few seconds, on what they estimated the traffic growth to be around Chatteris and how that was affected by COVID. But I mean, generally speaking, across the county, traffic has recovered from COVID. We are now at or around levels that we were in 2019. So,
and to be fair, I wouldn't dispute that. But what I would dispute is the figure. I'm not disputing is the figure. The interesting figure is when this was done in 2022, which could be a lot less than actually what we've got now, and that's why we're seeing, certainly last night, and raising these concerns.
Yeah, I mean, the DFT figures are, like I say, they're based on a manual count that may have been done in 2018 or something like that, and then factored up every year. So they are based on something, but there is an element of give, within those figures. And obviously, it's useful when we do get actual ATC data to compare the two. So, I mean, just looking here, I think that the latest the DFT data for 2024 estimated traffic on the A142 at this location at just over 11,000. But actually, the ATC data that was done 2 years previous in July of 2022, that collected 12,500. So clearly, the DFT figures are already underestimating the level of traffic on the A142. But with it, it's an A road. It's a busy A road. It's going to take a significant amount of traffic. There isn't any capacity issues on the A142 at the moment that I'm aware of in terms of the free-flowing nature of the road. It's taking 12,000. For example, the A142, towards Soham is taking 18,000, and that, generally speaking, that works quite well in most locations. So, moving from 11 to 12 to 14, I wouldn't necessarily expect to see that in terms of queuing, in terms of the free-flowing nature of the road. Obviously, introducing junctions has an impact, and you've mentioned, if someone's turning left, everyone behind them has to slow down. But I don't think that would necessarily materialise as a particular particular capacity issue in terms of introducing an extra junction or accepting that the ATC data is now 2.5 years ago.
Thank you. I think the people sitting at Sutton Roundabout in the mornings may disagree with that, though.
I suppose my last question to you is, regardless. So the traffic survey was done in July 2022. So we're talking about 3.5 years on. So why wasn't an up-to-date one done then, given the information you've got?
I mean, obviously, this application is slightly unique in it's taken a while to get to this point in terms of bringing it to a decision point. In terms of asking for an up-to-date survey, I think we've taken the view that apart from natural growth, and we accept natural growth, and we've got the DFT data and the temporary data that can estimate that, there isn't anything that's materially changed in the area of Chatteris between 2022 and 2020 and now in 2026 in terms of major house building that would have altered the level of traffic on the A142 over and above the estimates that we've got. So I'm not saying it wouldn't have been unhelpful to have an up-to-date survey, but I don't think it would have materially changed the situation. Yes, the figure will be higher, of course it will be, but it's not going to be so high that it takes out the assessments that we've already got available to us in terms of the DFT data or the temporary data.
Will get higher and higher and higher going forward, won't it? Obviously, going forward as the years pass by. So then it will be overused, won't it? It will be a capacity problem then, won't it?
It will go up year in year and year, and it will continue to do that as obviously the local planning authorities across Cambridgeshire deliver more houses as they're required to do by government. So yes, there will continue to be growth on the entire road network. Whether the assessments that have been done look specifically at junctions, they don't particularly look at the free-flowing nature of the A142. I mean, we've got an issue at Slade End. We know we do. We've made that very clear to Angular Water in terms of the Fens Reservoir, and we've sought mitigations on Slade End as a result of other developments, not least the 1,200 homes at March that was approved last year. So, we're well aware that Slade End is a particular issue. In terms of the other junctions, I don't think there's a particular capacity issue. Yes, there'll be queuing. Of course there will be. There'll always be queuing at junctions onto A roads. But in terms of whether that manifests itself as being categorised as overcapacity, I don't think there's a particular issue.
Councillor Purser, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I've sat here and listened to all the different arguments and all the likes, and I'm actually quite familiar with a couple of books called Roadcraft Manual and things like that as far as driving safety is concerned. I've also heard this afternoon that Councillor Benny and Councillor Marks and Councillor Connor, who know this area very, very well, have actually sat outside there for an hour and a half and actually watched the traffic go by and watching what's happened. You also talked at one time there about new software and data that you're actually doing the surveys by. So my question is actually fairly simple in this. When you did your surveys, Was it actually, you went out there personally and sat there for a couple of hours looking at it, or was it purely a desktop survey?
So it wasn't the county council that did the survey; it would have been the applicant, and they, as I explained, they laid an automatic traffic counter. So that's laid on the road, and it's there. It's not a manual count, no.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I think perhaps we've nearly done this to death now. We're going around in circles now. Yeah, well, thank you very much for answering or trying to put some comfort to us. Thank you. I don't know whether it has worked that way, but we've tried at least. Okay. Any more, just before we go, any more questions to officers? Yeah. Councillor Benny.
Got a question for officers. I mean, this traffic survey was done back in 2022. It's out of date. Since then, Floorspan have put an application in at Chatteris. There is traffic movements from there. It's a distribution company. There is going to be that. We've also got the new National Distribution Centre at Chatteris, which has got 24 loading bays. That is coming online. That's approved. That's being built. Airtron have had phase 2 nearly finished, and phase 3 will be coming on there. That will be more traffic. Anglian Water has been mentioned, the AD plant. The crematorium, all of this is put on there. But we've also got the Hallamland. I mean, Chatteris Gate is under development. That's being built. Now, when that reaches round to the bypass, that will put, there's 1,200 homes there, of which that will put pressure on the A142. So, as much as this data suggests at the moment it's fine, but this won't be built for 3 years. And within that 3 years, we're going to have the distribution centre, we're going to have Floorspan, we're going to have Airtron expansion, we're going to have Anglian Water come on board. And I get that, okay, it's first come, first served, but these are numbers that we see as local people are going to hit this road. And I get bombarded with people locally saying, what can you do about Apple Green Roundabout? And the truth is, until the Hallamland's built, or they built the 1,200 houses at March, the money isn't going to happen. Cambs County Council, I would assume, are not going to dig their hand in their pocket and change that. It desperately needs it. I mean, every day I drive down there and they're queuing back to stainless metal craft. Now, we don't want the same situation on the 142. Local people go through the town rather than go through down the bypass at Chatteris. Chatteris is very, very congested. And the bypass is supposed to alleviate the traffic in the town, but the town is alleviating the traffic on the bypass. We've already got that. And that's without all of these other developments that's going to put pressure on this road, pressure on this junction, and this development is going to make it worse.
Is that a question to officers?
Well, it's a question to Nicky, really.
Okay.
I know these won't be taken into account, but how many vehicle movements from the new distribution centre, Floorspan, you probably haven't got the figures for Anglian Water, the AD plant, I know you said it's a capped 192 per day, but is that 192 per day over a year, or is that 192 maximum per day? Because they don't bring crops in when they're growing in the field. It's all done August, September time when the volume is there. So again, has that been put into the modelling to make sure, or to prove how sound this modelling is? Because you get peaks and troughs, and the digester takes stuff in real peaks. It's really busy September, sort of August, September time, but you don't have anything in June and July. I don't know. Can you tell me what sort of numbers have we got and how that mapping was put together, please?
Through you, Chairman, I'll allow Nicky to
accept your answer, David. That's
research the sort of the cap on the AD plan and to provide some further information.
If you want a few minutes to pull that data together and
no,
come back, I'm happy for.
I mean, I think to pick up on some of the wider points. I mean, the Hallamland site, for example, has been committed for a long time. It's an allocation within the local plan, so effectively that's been. And indeed, it was a planning application going back to 2010, 2012. So that's been well known about for a number of years, and I would anticipate that that's been factored into the data that's been submitted as part of this application. I think to move on to the issue of Anglian Water, I think as James alluded to earlier, that's not a committed scheme. There are no details of where infrastructure will be going. There is no details as to traffic generation, and as such, that is not something that could reasonably be factored into determining this planning application. And effectively, it's for Anglian Water to be dealing with the mitigation of their sort of traffic generation as part of their proposals, not for this application to deal with that. In terms of some of the other issues, I think unfortunately I'm probably going to have to come back to James on that in terms of whether those developments have significantly or materially changed the flows. So, for example, Aerodrom, my suspicion would be, I don't want to sort of speak on his behalf, but my suspicion would be that the scale of development that would be generated, or the scale of traffic movements that would be generated by those developments would not be sufficient to materially change the modelling that's taken place to date in respect to this application. So hopefully that answers most of the issues, and I'll allow Nikki to answer on the AD plant.
Thank you. So comments received on the current application. So the additional trip generation proposed by the development is negligible and falls within the site trip generation limit condition as part of the original planning permission for the site. So they are requesting that that same condition is reimposed, which is no more than a maximum of 192 way vehicle movement shall enter and leave the site in any one day, and that they should have record basically, so that it is enforceable.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Marks, thank you.
Just on that point, who actually checks that data from them?
That would be the transport assessment team.
We know if they do actually check that data.
As far as I'm aware, they provide their consultancy comments on that basis.
We're still questions to officers. We've been on it a long time now. Anybody else? I'm looking. No? Okay. So we're going to stop that then. Thank you. So thank you everybody for that. Thank you officers. Now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect to the material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. It's Councillor French to kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Probably about half an hour ago, we discussed management plans and sweepers. As you're well aware, Chairman, 2 weeks ago we were told we could not condition that on applications in March. So I think as far as the management plans, they're not worth the paper they're written on. Because as you're aware, you and I go out many times, and especially 3 sites in March, and I can't see this one being any different.
Yeah, but there's a difference there, Councillor French. That was 15 houses, I think, was it? And this is 125. So there's quite a bit of difference. Although, thank you for recognising that we go out.
Correct, something that Councillor Benny said. He said there was money allocated towards the Apple Green roundabout on the 1,200 homes. That's not correct. It's the 425 at Barker's Lane, and I believe it's 130 at Lambsgrove. The 1,200 is not in yet, but I understand that will be coming in shortly.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And it is for March, not for Chatteris.
That's it. I will reiterate. It's March East. It's March East where the money's coming from to hopefully bring the Apple Green roundabout up into the 21st century. Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you. I think we've heard a lot this afternoon. We've heard from the agent, the developers, gentleman from the highways, bless him, you know, to be fair. I am very surprised that we are working on 2022 information. We know it's well documented throughout the country. People were working from home back in 2022. I mean, you know, petrol fuel went down to almost £1 a gallon because they couldn't get rid of it. So I think that speaks volumes of how many vehicles were probably being used on the highways at that point. We've seen the figure here today. We've got conflicting figures of 12,500 in 2024, 11,000. There's so many conflictions about this. The other thing gentleman from the highway said was free flow. We don't actually look at free flow. Well, pulling out onto that road, it will not be free flow. It will be hard on the brakes. Quite honestly, you'd be better off setting a company up selling brakes, because anybody pulling out onto that, or anybody coming behind it at 60 mile an hour pulling out onto that, as we saw yesterday, you know, it is not a sensible idea to me. Yes, I'm a layperson. I think there's a lot of other things regarding that junction. The actual application for the building of it, I don't have an issue with, but I do not in any way see me sitting here today, and I think even after the debate, and put my hand up to vote for that. So with that, with the entrance or exit where it is.
Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chatteris Councillor, adjacent to my ward, was my ward. I like Councillor Marks. I welcome the development. I've got no problems with the development. This is purely on road safety. I am not happy with this access. From a community point of view, Chatteris has got a very, very good community feel to it. This is going to build a community within a community. The houses are being devalued by this access because who want to live there if it's there? People will take it and they haven't got a choice. There's a lot of things wrong with the development because of the access. I welcome the houses. I'll say no more on that. But looking through the report, I read through the report from Nikki. 7 times it mentions in there that there are reservations about this coming onto the A142. It's not ideal, and we've heard from County Council today. We don't really want this, but we've sort of had to go along with it because the numbers stack up. But the numbers don't stack up because the data is skewed. The data is out of date. And this is going to cause problems for Chatteris. I don't think this is going to be good for the people who live there. Personally, I will not be supporting this afternoon. I think that even in the report, as much as you've written a good report, Nikki, and I know you put a lot of work into this, I think, you know, if somebody sense checked this wouldn't be here. I know you go by policy, which is where it is, and I appreciate how you got there. But you know, when you're in business, you think, right, that's what I want to do, but you sense check it. You look at it and think, is this going to work? And I think if you sense check this access is wrong for this development. And I'm going to say no more, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I've taken note of everything you said, Councillor Benny and Councillor Marks as well, and obviously put my own little bit into it. I also noted that you said you couldn't think of anywhere else that a major development was coming onto 60-mile-an-hour road. So if we do this, we've set a precedent for a start, and in my opinion, and only endorsed it last night, this is going to be, in my view only, and as you know, it will be an accident waiting to happen. I'm absolutely certain, because you know, cars are going to turn left out of there to go to probably Chatteris, hypothetically. They've got to get up to 50 miles an hour pretty quickly before another car on the traffic we saw last night is really close to them. So they've got to accelerate really quickly, and this doesn't fill me with any confidence at all, to be fair. So I'm fairly certain at the moment, unless a rabbit's pulled out of the hat, I won't be supporting this application here this afternoon. But Councillor Marks.
I think we heard you say, well, you know, again, if the inspector, you know, we couldn't probably go. I'm quite surprised at that, because a red route to me just flags up danger. And why are we introducing vehicle movements from a dead stop onto a road that's 60 mile an hour? And I honestly think, you know, if there's anything else, that would be the one thing I would highlight as to why this. Surely with red routes, that's an alarm bell that's not only flashing, that's got big flashing lights, and that should be the thing. And we did hear from yourself as well, and I understand, you know, you are speaking one way for the council, but sensibility is you would not, if you were presented with that. And really the only reason you've been presented with that is because the landowner or the developer has only got one option. Just because he's only got that option, I still don't think we should put families in danger on that road. So, as I say.
And I can only go by my own views, as again for last night. I would not want to put my family or any of my close friends, I wouldn't want to recommend that they turn left or right on that 60-mile-an-hour road. Just the human cost. There will be a human cost. Make no mistake about that. One hopes they're not. I haven't got a crystal ball, but chances are my feelings that there will be. So we're still in debate. Councillor Marks?
I think one other thing to add in, because obviously if this ever did go where an inspector looked at it, I think the other thing we need to actually say as well is, why is there a speed camera less than a quarter of a mile further up the road? They don't put speed cameras willy-nilly. They put speed cameras of where there is issues. And we are just adding to an issue because the speed camera is actually on the left-hand side. Vehicles pulling out there on the left-hand side. We know that just proves there must be a speeding issue before you get to the next junction. So, you know, I honestly believe that by voting against this myself, I'm actually protecting people as opposed to, you know, just saying, yeah, get on with it.
We're still in debate. Anybody else want to add to it? No? Okay, finish the debate, everybody. Make sure. That's it. Debate's finished. Any clarifications you'd like to give? And I'm sure there will be.
I don't know about clarifications, Chairman. Obviously, listen to the debate, the tone of the debate, and I think there seems a pretty unanimous sort of view from members regarding the sort of the road safety implications of the development. Obviously, the decision on the application is within the gift of the committee and within the gift of members. However, I think it probably would be sort of failing if I didn't point out that there's no objection to the application from your highway advisors, the local highway authority, and consequently, should the application be refused and the proposal go to appeal, there's a reasonable chance that that refusal would be difficult to defend at appeal and could be subject to the award of costs. I think members just need to be aware of that in their final deliberations. Thank you, Chair.
So, Benny?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the only thing I would say to that, costs are a consideration. They're not a determining factor on a planning application. We're here to make a decision. We're local members. We know what we saw. We know we've discussed this. It most probably will go to appeal. If I hope we don't lose, but truthfully, this is why residents elect people like us to speak up for local people. And if we see things, we're derelict of our duty if we don't act on that. It's not very often I go against officers for an approval. I'm very pro-development, and I'm pro the development. I just feel that it's the safety aspect and the community aspect of this being a community within a community, which I don't think is good, because people will not use bikes and walk for that. We've covered that.
Councillor Marks, and then I'll bring in our legal executive.
Totally agree with what Councillor Benny said. Yeah, I think the officers have done a really good job here. I don't think it's anything that the officers are doing done wrong. I think it's actually just the application. And I hate to say it, we cannot, as a planning committee, sit here and put, you know, money in front of safety. I believe it's safety that we should put first at all times. And whether it's money, whether we go and lose an inquiry, or alternatively, you know, this comes down to money. If the developer can do a deal with somebody else, then he wouldn't be coming out onto the 141. We wouldn't be having this issue. You know, as much as nobody wants this to go to appeal, and we certainly don't want to get costs against us, we did have an appeal a few weeks ago where I believe that the inspector came back and said we'd asked and done the right thing. We didn't get costs against us, although we lost the appeal. And I think that's, again, what the situation we find ourselves in today.
We'll let David answer that, and then I'm going to bring in our legal executive.
Thank you, Chairman. I think just to clarify the issue of costs, or to explain the issue of costs, you don't get costs just because you've lost an appeal.
No.
You get costs awarded against you where you are deemed as the decision-making body to have acted unreasonably. And one of the definitions of unreasonable conduct would be to refuse an application where there is no technical expertise to support that. So going, as in this scenario, potentially going against the recommendation of the Highway Authority and refusing the application on highway safety grounds would potentially be a scenario where costs could be awarded against the local planning authority.
Sorry.
So,
Can I come back?
just quickly.
If I can come back on that, totally agree. However, we've heard this afternoon that the information that we're working on is 2022, and we're querying the information we've been given. And even we've heard from the highways gentleman himself, this doesn't actually is now a true factor of where we are today. So I think we've got COVID to thank for this confusion, and maybe would have a different outcome today had we had the proper facts and figures in front of us. But at the moment, from what I can see, we've got too much conflicting information, and that's what we're here to do at the end of the day.
Here for a balance. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our legal executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the only other point I just wanted to say was in terms of a decision, the other thing you could possibly think about is deferring the application if there was any other information that you thought would be useful to help with your decision. It was just to add that additional option there.
Yeah, I'll leave you, Councillor Marks, then Councillor Benny, then I'll come in myself.
The only thing I can think of to defer this decision would be on the facts and figures on the highways count that we've got at the present time. We're still not going to change the entrance in and out. All we're going to do is defer and probably end up with more facts and figures to cause either more confusion or to prove there's more traffic going down that road. There's certainly not less. Let's be fair, 2022 to now, we've already heard, gentlemen said, it goes up. So, I don't see a deferral on this makes any sense.
No, and there's not going to be a speed reduction in the time that it takes to bring this back if we did defer it. I think the planning committee, it seems to me, I think I can see where this is going. It just seems to me everybody's happy with the development, but they're not happy with the exit or the income and the exit, both. So I can't really see where a deferral will help us at all, because it just won't. So, yeah.
Sorry. The other thing I just wanted to add as well is that I've not discussed this with planning officers or anything like that, but there is the potential use of CPO powers that could be used by the council to consider alternative accesses and things like that. So that could be another point that could be considered. Obviously, that would need to be explored in terms of utilising those powers and whether the council would be prepared to do that. But that's something to be thought about.
So, thank you. So I'm going to get Councillor French to reply to that, then Councillor Benny.
Could you repeat what you just said, please?
Explain it to us.
No, of course. So local authorities have compulsory purchase powers under different pieces of statute for different purposes. So one thing that I was potentially thinking about here is with this site, we've talked about how we've just got the solar access coming in and we've got issues with it being landlocked around. If there was a circumstance whereby there was some sort of CPO indemnity agreement between the developer and the council for the council to exercise their CPO powers to acquire land to build a highway. So basically, the kind of cost for that would be paid by the developer, but the council would be exercising their powers. Obviously, that would kind of be subject to, more detailed review and legal advice and that sort of thing. But that's an option of kind of unlocking some surrounding land if everyone was kind of happy with the development coming forward.
Oh dear, oh dear. Councillor French, no, and then Councillor Benny.
Thank you. My understanding, we're here to look at what's on the table. It's not for us as a council to look at a CPO, and a CPO will possibly take, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We ain't going to be here in 2 years' time. So, we're looking at what's in front of us today. And I've been on this council 27 years now, and I have never known an instance in any shape or form that we'd go for a CPO on a bit of land.
It's an idea, but it won't work here. Okay, did you want to come in there at all?
Councillor Marks covered what I was going to say.
Okay. So I'm going to go now. Do I have a proposer to go with officer recommendation to grant, to be clear, this application? Do I have a proposer? So I'm looking for a different proposal. Councillor Benny, what are you proposing and the reasons for doing so?
It's fine. I propose that we go against officer's recommendation and refuse this application. Very much, as every officers know, I am very pro-development and I'd be pro the development itself. The reasons are the access. This access coming out onto this road is, in my opinion, unsafe. And the way that the officers, they work on data, and this data is out of date. There are a lot of considerations. That's the time that the traffic survey was done in the middle of school holidays. We hadn't recovered from COVID. We sat there, the three of us, the other night, and we saw what the traffic was on that road. So we're using our own eyes on that. So the reasons I would go against is because of that. I mean, if you want some reasons from the local plan, there are a couple I could go to. Health and well-being says that the streets have to be connected to the town, but truthfully, that's not what this is. This is about safety. I think the data that's been used, we've heard from Cambs County Council that they're not really happy with this. It's 7 times in the report it mentions that it's okay, but it's not really what we want, but it's the only option we've got. Well, I don't think that's good enough for Chatteris. I don't think it's good enough for the people that are going to live there. And that's my reasons for going against this. If you want more, I can keep going with that, but that is the essence of this. This is on the access onto that 142. That is a very busy road. It's a 60 mile an hour. We've got nothing else in Cambridgeshire that the officer here has told us. Why does Chatteris have to have it? I don't think this is right.
Okay,
sorry, I think we should also add in, which is quite substantial towards it. It is a red route. It's an identified red route.
Okay, so I'm happy with that because I absolutely endorse what Councillor Benny's reasons for. So I'm happy with that. Okay, have we got a seconder for that, Councillor Marks? So we've got a proposed. Sorry.
Just so that I'm clear, when we're writing a decision notice up. So the reasons for refusal relate to the access onto the A142 would be unsafe.
Yep.
And it's considered that the A142 in itself is an already unsafe road, and that the application is based on unreliable, out-of-date data. Presumably, members want that to be tied into policy LP15 of the local plan.
Yeah. No.
Sorry, we've been told before, if we're going to do this, don't get into multiple reasons. Keep to this. I mean, you could bring in that I don't think this is building a community because it's a community within a community, which I don't think is good. LP17, I'll get my wording right on this one. Yeah, Sid's come up with the same thing as me. Community safety. It says including a street plan and footwork network that is convenient, attractive, and safe for use. There is not a safe vehicular access for these people. They've got to travel over a mile to get to a supermarket. And for that reason, they're going to have to do that, which means more vehicle movements, and every vehicle movement increases the risk of danger. I could put them in, but to me that's peripheral to the main reason, which I think you've got, David.
We want just to make it to one for highway issues. Just that one reason. Incorporate everything with what's said, but just to make it highway issues to be clear. Yeah, that's just one reason for refusal, David.
Through you, Chairman. Yes, I think members have confirmed that what the reasons for refusal are, and yes, we can incorporate that into a reason for refusal within the decision notice.
Right. Oh, we'll go back then. So a couple of minutes ago, we had a proposal that we refuse this application. It was proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor Marks. Can I have a show of hands for that?
Unanimous decision, Chairman.
So that application has been refused. So we've been going now for 2 3/4 hours. Sorry? We're going to have a cup of tea or a whiskey, whatever. Thank you, members, for being back on time. I'll now quickly hand over to Danielle Brooke. She's the Senior Development here at Fenland to present application F/YR25/0413F, agenda item number 5. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 5 is a full planning application seeking the installation of a solar farm with battery storage, substation and associated works at land at West Fen Farm on Whitemoor Road in March. The application is before members owing to March Town Council's comments contrary to officer recommendation. The site comprises 109 hectares approximately of best and most versatile agricultural land, grades 2 and 3A, and is currently under arable production and lies to the north of Whittlesey Road in March, approximately 1.5 kilometres east of the village of Turves and approximately 4 kilometres west of the settlement of March. The nearest residential properties are located 300 metres west of the site boundary, 300 metres east of the site and West Fen Farm itself, which sits at the northeastern corner. There are no public rights of way within or immediately adjacent to the site. The nearest are footpath 15616, located approximately 700 metres north of the site, and footpath 15629, located 540 metres southwest of the site, and they are, if you can just about make them out, the green lines on the left-hand plan. The brown dashed line denotes the route of the overhead power lines that currently cross the site in an east and west direction. The site is located nearby to the West Fen level crossing, which is part of the railway between March and Peterborough, and it forms a short section of the southern boundary. The Neen Washes SSSI and SAC are set to the northwest beyond the northernmost footpath as shown basically in the very top left-hand corner of the left-hand map. The site lies in flood zone 3 and in an area benefiting from flood defences. The application seeks full planning permission for the installation of a 49 megawatt solar farm, ground-mounted photovoltaic farm with 30 megawatts of battery energy storage system as well. Planning permission is sought for a temporary period of 42 years to accommodate up to 1 year for construction, up to 40 years for operation and energy storage, and up to 1 year for decommissioning, after which the land is proposed to revert back to its agricultural use. The main components of the proposed development include the solar panels mounted up to approximately 3.5 metres above ground on galvanised metal frames, 16 solar inverter cabins, a battery energy storage system compound containing 35 storage containers and 7 inverter cabins, including auxiliary systems such as fire suppression and alarm systems, ventilation and cooling systems, internal lighting and thermal control, a substation to draw the power, and a perimeter fencing approximately 2 metres high containing small mammal gates, vehicle entrance gates and CCTV throughout the site. The development proposes its main point of access via the existing agricultural access which is on Whittlesey Road. The local highway authority has raised no objection to the point of access, but had requested that the access was improved and passing places introduced along its length to cater particularly for construction traffic, to avoid any vehicle-to-vehicle conflicts and associated impacts on the highway network itself. The applicant did include this detail, and this is shown on their updated access plan. The main infrastructure incorporating the substation, connection pylon, battery storage and inverter cabins are located to the southwest of the wider development, where the existing overhead pylons cross through the site. The green box you can just make out about in the centre of the image is where the connection should be made. The compound shown will be enclosed with a 4 metre high acoustic fence and secure gated access. This slide shows the general arrangement of the substation and the connection mast proposed. This slide shows section and elevation details of the main energy producing and storage infrastructure. The storage will mostly comprise cabins that are similar to shipping containers, and the solar panels will be raised to enable grazing underneath. The CCTV shown as part of a security package for the site will include final details but secured via a condition. Drainage is proposed to infiltrate the ground as it currently does, but shallow drainage channels such as swales are proposed to be created to ensure surface water drains to the nearest watercourses. The scheme has been amended to include middle-level commissioners' comments in respect of maintaining easements accesses across their drains. The development will achieve a biodiversity net gain in excess of the statutory 10%. Landscaping is proposed to screen the development in key locations around the site and has been enhanced following discussions with the council's landscaping consultant. Long-term management will be key to ensure visual impacts are appropriately mitigated and biodiversity secured, which again can be secured by condition. Some photos of the existing site. Apologies, I've put my teeth in. Photo 1 is the view to the west with turfs that you can just about make out in the distance. Photo 2 is the view to the east, which shows the railway crossing. And photo 3 is the view north across the site and the existing primary access point that you can just make out the existing pylons in the distance of that photo. Photo 1 on this site is adjacent to the public right-of-way, views looking southwest. Again, north of the site on the adjacent public right-of-way, photo 2 is views from the southeast. 3 views across the east, again from the public right-of-way, and photo 4 views west. Ultimately, from these photos, it is clear that the existing site is within the typical Fenland agricultural landscape, which is generally flat with significant wide open views. Following are some photo montages that were provided by the applicant's landscape consultant from various vantage points around the development area, showing the development in the landscape once the landscaping is mature at approximately 15 years. So that's a couple. And there's a few more. As you can see overall, it's considered that the proposed development would have a limited effect and harm on the visual amenity of the wider landscape beyond the site boundary, particularly once landscaping is established. So to conclude, the proposal seeks full planning permission for a 49.8 megawatt solar farm with 30 megawatts of battery storage, infrastructure, fencing and CCTV. The site covers approximately 109 hectares of currently arable agricultural land and is located on Whittlesea Road in March. In terms of the planning balance, the development would deliver significant renewable energy and battery storage, helping to address climate change, improve energy security, and it would provide a significant biodiversity net gain and create economic benefits and employment during construction, operation and decommissioning. These benefits carry positive weight in planning terms. No significant harm has been identified in relation to residential amenity, traffic, flood risk, archaeology, fire safety or crime, and these are considered neutral in the balance. Some harm is identified to the landscape character and through the use of best and most versatile agricultural land, although some agricultural use may continue through pastoral farming. These impacts, however, carry limited negative weight. So overall, the benefits are considered to outweigh the harms, and therefore it is recommended that planning permission be granted.
Yeah, thank you very much, Danielle. We have one set of speakers on this item, and I'd like to ask Callum Wright, Mark Kelly, they're the applicants, and Mark Hethington, he's the landowner, to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes when you're ready to start. Thank you.
Man. Okay, good. Okay. Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Mark Kelly. I work for PACE, the developer bringing forward the proposals today. We are a UK headquartered clean infrastructure developer, builder, owner and operator. I'm here with my colleague Callum, who's our planning manager at PACE, and the landowner and farmer, Mark.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Hetherington, the landowner and farmer. My brother and I have farmed here since 2008. Our family have been farming the land that we own in Fermanagh for over 200 years. My son is currently at Newcastle University studying agriculture and hopes to take over the land in due course. It's safe to say we've seen it all over the years. For the last 15 years, we have been operating a fairly intensive beef finishing unit, predominantly growing maize and feed wheat on the proposed solar land, which is then fed to our cattle. The introduction of solar across our farm will see our business diversify from intensive beef production to extensive sheep production. Coming from a beef and sheep farm in Ireland, this is something my family and I are very excited about. We believe we will see an overall increase in sustainable meat production from that land. The financial offering from solar will enable us to farm in a more extensive manner, grazing the land directly instead of intensively farming forage crops fed by artificial fertilizers and chemical sprays. Farming in this way is a well-documented way to improve soil structure, fertility and organic matter in the soil. Not only will the solar income secure the financial viability of our business, but the regenerative approach that extensive farming will offer will secure the long-term soil health for future generations. Finally, I would ask the committee to recognise the perilous position very many small farms are in today. The supermarkets will not pay a sustainable price for our products, and government is offering us less and less support. Without projects like this, smaller farms like ours will cease to exist, with ever large landowners such as pension funds hoovering up that land. This will mean far fewer jobs for local people, as the land will be run for the benefit of corporations and not communities. Thank you for your time today.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Callum Wright, the Planning Manager at Pace. The development of our scheme, Middle Fen Solar, has been an exercise of ensuring all material planning considerations are fully addressed to ensure there is minimal harm, while still enabling significant public benefit in the form of clean, renewable energy. Benefits that can allow for the powering of 24,000 homes and the displacing of enough CO2 to take around 13,000 cars off the road, as well as significant biodiversity net gain uplift. The application, submitted back in May 2025, has been subject to extensive review from the case officer and statutory consultees. The scheme has since been amended to include screening so that there is no open visibility of the site, to provide finer detail of the construction access and the vehicle routes, and to provide clarity on the site selection methodology, which justifies the location in consideration of the current and surrounding land uses. We are now in a position where we have addressed all policy requirements, and the case officer is recommending approval on this basis. Sorry. Due to the location of the site away from significant public receptors, the application to this point has only received one objection from members of the public, notably from a dwelling in excess of 5 kilometres from the proposed site. Often, committee members cite solar schemes as much needed development, but only in the right location. The scheme presented to you today is an example of a solar site in the right location, and to surmise, no objection from any members of the public within 5 kilometres of the proposed site, no objections from technical and statutory consultees, extensive work with the LPA to ensure minimal landscape visual impact, no potential for harm to neighbouring amenity in the form of noise, outlook or glint and glare, presents an uplift in biodiversity through securing a substantial net gain, supports a farmer in diversifying their business so they can continue to support the economy, and provides business rates to the council. Given all of the above, we believe the scheme is policy compliant and represents significant public benefit. We thereby invite members of the committee to recommend approval for this scheme. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Members, questions, clarifications at all? Councillor French will kick off, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, I've probably got the 20 questions, but I'll keep it down to 4. First off, if I can ask the owner, Mr. Heatherton, do you own the whole 109 acres, depending on your answer, and do you have land elsewhere?
No, we have 500 acres in a square plot. This is only half the farm. We have land back in Ireland that we farm for generations, but that's all. That's our interest. But as I say, we've been here since 2008.
So questions to your agent. Have you actually driven down that road recently?
Yes, so we conducted site visits twice throughout the determination of the application, and then we went down there again a couple of months ago.
We were down there on Sunday. It's atrocious. Within the county highway report, they suggest that you put passing places in. If you've got a lorry going down there, there are no passing places. I've been down there several times because I live nearby. The road is appalling. Do you plan to put passing places right from the top, near the roundabout as you turn sharp left, near the garage and the carpenters? The road is appalling. The whole road is breaking up. So are you going to upgrade the road with decent passing places.
Could you just clarify what road that was? Because there was one passing place agreed with the highways officer that we are planning to implement along the construction route. I could also just note as well, obviously, the condition of the road isn't excellent, but we've agreed to a condition with the planning officer for a road condition survey, so that'll be taken before development and then obviously maintained throughout.
Thank you. I'm sure County Council are well aware of the state of that road. It's absolutely appalling, and it's not just outside your access. It's actually from the start near the Peace Hill roundabout, and it goes all the way down to your side. Okay, so that's sorry, connection to the grid. Are you going underground or overhead?
We're connecting to the point of connection mast by the connection tower. I think it was just shown in the presentation.
No,
Yeah, so overground.
the question is it underground or is it over?
It's overground.
So is it a new pylon?
It's a tower adjacent to the existing pylon.
Okay, another question. Why are you not looking to connect to the March grid rather than go into Peterborough? The March grid is desperately in need of upgrading, and UK Power Network do not plan to do anything to at least 2028.
So I'd have to check this. You're talking about the substation. So we're connecting into a line that supplies to the substation. So this is what's been agreed by the distribution network operator. So we have little choice of where exactly we connect. The benefit we have here is that the point of connection is actually on our site, so we don't have to run cables across land and roads to get to our connection point. But ultimately, if you're talking substations that we connect into, this is connected. I believe it's March that it's connected into.
No, it's not. It's Peterborough. If you read your report, it's Peterborough. Next question. What benefits do you think the residents of March are going to have with this? And I'm talking about under the sequential test, there should be a benefit.
So, avoiding the benefits from renewable energy generation, we have a community benefit fund that we offer to sort of the local town council. That's yet to be negotiated with them, but it will be imposed.
Thank you. That's all my questions at the moment.
Councillor Marks, then I'll come in then.
Thank you for clarity. Sorry, I missed your name. Sorry, the owner. You farm this land at present time, or is it contract farmed?
No, we farm in hand. We use we do most of the tractor work ourselves, but specialist things like combine harvesting, we bring somebody in for that. But we have our own tractors, our own implements.
So whereabouts is your farm buildings?
On the site. We've got a house there. We've got grain sheds there. We've got beef yards there.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Hetherington, did you say you're doing cattle or anything? Cattle or you've got cattle? You use the ground to feed the cattle or anything like that?
Yes, we built beef yards about 15 years ago, and from time to time we ran it for about 10 years consistently. But the way the beef market has moved, it's become difficult to make any money from that. So we use the yards as and when they look that they can make a return. So currently they're not in use, and we're finding it's harder and harder to use the beef yards because of various pricing issues.
Because it says on 9.23, the land in question here hasn't been used for farm. Has been used for anaerobic digestion.
Yes, that's a result of we grow maize because we have the cattle there. We built a large silage clamp, which is quite unusual in the area. So it can hold up to 6,000 tons of forage maize. That's what we needed to feed the cattle when the yard was full. But when the cattle aren't there, that then gets sold to biodigesters. So, for example, Pretoria took last year's crop, but it's a very good break crop in terms of wheat and a spring crop. So that's why we favour maize.
That's clarified that then. Thank you. Else at all? Any more questions for these gentlemen? Councillor Marks, did you want any more questions before we let them go? No, no worries at all. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Members, questions, clarifications to officers? You have one, Councillor French, or several?
Yeah, thank you. This is to James Stringer, if you may, James. You're obviously well aware of the appalling state of that road, and it has been like that for several years. You cannot go down there in a car. Unfortunately, when I went on the site, my friend Mr. Benny, he's got a 4x4. Otherwise, you know, I certainly wouldn't take my car down there. Are you seeking passing places, the full stretch of the road, or is it just outside the axis?
In terms of passing places, the only one being proposed is off the public highway. It's on the private track, just as you go in the access, because the private track is quite long, quite straight. So the passing place sought is off the public highway. There is no passing places being sought on Whittlesea Road.
Thanks, James. If you've got an HGV going down there, there's no passing places and nothing will get past there. So I just wonder, I mean, it's bad enough at the moment. There is a lot of HGVs go down there going into Towers. So, I mean, this road, the state is in now, if this application is approved, there's going to be nothing left of the road unless it is a county council highway, and county council really need to take responsibility and get that road updated. It's a bit like Floods Ferry. I'm sure you know what Floods Ferry is like. I'm not quite sure which is the worst, the Whittlesea Road, Floods Ferry, probably Whittlesea.
Okay. Any more questions to officers? Obviously, you've seen we've still got the highway officer here. Councillor French has asked the question. To anything to our officers at all? No? Okay, fair enough. Now I'd like to ask everybody to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material considerations relevant to the application if you'd like to speak, and Councillor French has indicated she likes to do so.
Thank you. Yeah, I did ask the question about the March local grid. I had a farmer contact me a few months ago asking what could be done to help him out. He wants to put some more wind turbines on his farm. He has spoken to UK Network, and they said they won't even consider looking at the March grid because it has no capacity to take anything else until at least 2028. Now, if this application had offered to assist with upgrading the March one instead of the Peterborough one, you know, I might be looking at it favourably. But I can't see any benefits whatsoever to the residents of March, and there should be, you know, for residents to have to endure this type of stuff, we should have some kind of benefits, and I certainly cannot see any benefits whatsoever.
Councillor Marks?
Whether it benefits March or whatever, I cannot understand why we keep having these that are giving up good farming land. We hear about the environment, we hear about farmers, and I perfectly agree with the gentleman. You know, farming is in a hell of a state, but we are then going to be taking more agricultural land out, whether it's for maize, whether it's for crops or whatever. And then we then stand in Dover watching the lorries come through with the lettuces and everything else. Environmentally, it can't be right. We should be not covering that, especially Fenland, in glass. What we should be doing is giving it growing stuff. And this is going to take this out for up to 40 years. What guarantees have we got in year 39 also that this company suddenly, for whatever, goes into administration? And then, you know, we're left with this as another eyesore that somebody's going to pick the bill up. It won't be Fenland District Council, but there's more than likely going to be somebody who picks this bill up. And what are we going to be doing? We're going to be putting sheep on there. There's quite a lot of sheep in Scotland and used in other areas where they already are on hillsides and stuff like that, where they can't grow crop. I'm not against, and I feel sorry for the gentleman sitting there. You know, I do understand farming is in a very poor state. I come from a farming background. However, I think we've got to be really careful in giving up good land that we can grow crop on to just put glass up. We're not going to see the benefit of it. And I have to say, Mr. Trump last night made a comment. We've got enough North Sea oil, and why are we messing around with wind farms when we've got North Sea oil and stuff? Surely we should be more inclined to leave this as land and not glass farms.
Yeah, I'm going to follow on from you, Councillor Marks. Yeah, I just do not see the relevance of this application. I can see it's government policy for green energy, but what we're doing here and looking at this, it's grade 2 and grade 3A, as far as I can read in the report, agricultural land. So it's good farming land, and there we are. Taking that out of production for the next 40 years. I don't suppose any of us will be here probably to see that be decommissioned, but some of our families possibly will be. So for me, it's just, if it was scrub land, I could probably understand where that was coming, because that would be probably best used for that. But in Fenland, high productive, fertile, grade 2 and grade 3 land, I just can't see the relevance of this application. Sorry. Councillor Marks over that. Thank you.
My concern also, vehicles. We were told petrol was the great way forward. Then we were told diesel. And recently we've been told electric is the great way forward. So we would need this for charging. However, in the last 18 months, hydrogen has come to a front, which is now seen to be beginning to take over from electric. So we're not going to need as much electric with hydrogen, and hydrogen has got a lot less byproduct. Yeah, and we're not taking out farmland. So I'm sorry, I cannot back this at the present time, and especially in the fens.
Just to read it, high grade agricultural land is being taken out of production. I mean, obviously it was up to Mr. Hetherington where he sold his produce to, but in effect he could be growing maize. He has been growing maize for human consumption rather than going to biogas, which again, in my opinion, is not green at all. But we are where we are. So anybody else? Councillor French.
Thank you. I'm just going to go through a couple of lists on the actual report. It clearly states in 5.7 pollution, noise, dust, and the possibility of vibration and the impact of occupiers near. Yes, I know there's only a few houses down there, but they are down there, and I don't see why they should have to suffer for this type of development. 5.9, I'm impressed that they've actually looked at the 9-metre buffer on the IDB, because the IDB are very strict within the 9 metres, because they do have to have access. And as I've said, I sit on all the drainage boards around here. Habitat, I'm not sure if I've seen anything about badgers. There's a lot of badgers about in Finland, and especially in March. And I don't know if the agents and the applicant are aware, if you want to move a badger set, it will cost you something like £30,000, because there's a lot you have to do. And it is a criminal offence not to do that work. 5.14, the police are concerned about lighting. They've suggested they have CCTV and lighting. You're going to have lighting in the open countryside. You're going to cause light pollution, and especially that far down Whittlesea Road. It's not acceptable. I think I'll leave it like that.
Councillor Marks.
One other thought. Well, we have Welney, not 8 miles down the road, probably less as the crow flies. I was just looking here because we hear of swans and when the migratory birds landing on roadways, certainly on motorways and stuff like that. It concerns me. This will be literally in the middle of countryside, where if caught by light, it will look shimmery, very similar to a lake or a pond. Again, we sat here last month, or sorry, 2 weeks ago, with an application, and we heard regarding what we were being told by Natural England because of the flight path, and they were concerned about houses being put. Surely this is more of a concern again, and we've got the washers the other side.
Okay, We're still in debate. Anybody else want to add to it at all? I'm looking intently at anybody. No? No? Did you want to come back at all, Councillor French, or are you happy?
I think I've said enough.
Said enough? Oh, probably not. Anything else? Nope. That's the finish then. Closing the debate. Officers, would you like to contribute anything?
Thank you, Chairman, through you. Here's some of the sort of comments that have been made during the debate around the sort of ecology side of things. I think it's fair to say that the application has been accompanied by quite significant information in terms of ecology. We've got comments set out within the report from the Council's own ecologist addressing those issues. Habitats regulations assessment has been carried out as part of the application, as part of the consideration of the application. And we've also got comments from Natural England raising no objections to the application. I think there were sort of a number of other issues raised about how the farmland could be used differently, should be used differently, which perhaps are not really material to the determination of the application. And I think essentially the material considerations are set out within the report. The report is very balanced in terms of how it identifies areas of harm and weighs that harm against the benefits of the application in terms of the overall contribution to renewable energy kind of nationally rather than in identified immediate vicinities. So it's across the members now as to how you wish to determine the application.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely.
Also, just to clarify in respect of best and most versatile land, the site only represents about, in respect of the district, the entire district of BMV land within our district, the site area represents 0.5% of best and most versatile land and 0.01% of best and most versatile land nationally. So the impact of removing this land from arable production is next to negligible in respect of the overall food, production within our district and within the nation. However, we do have to also consider that this land currently, and for some years, as we understand, has not been used for food production. So food security and matters thereof are not a material consideration in this case.
Right. I'm just going to, our legal executive would like to clarify something or make some comments.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate as well, kind of similar points that David made in relation to the previous application about kind of material considerations and whatever way you choose to vote in terms of what you consider of any reasons if you were to refuse, just considering that in terms of any potential appeal and any possible cost implications of that if there's any unreasonable conduct in terms of the reasons that are given if there's any refusal.
A couple of minutes, a couple of seconds to decipher what the legal executive has said. Okay, we're all clear on that, aren't we? So do we have, moving on now, you've had, do I have a proposer to go with officer recommendation to grant planning permission in this particular case? No, I can't see any hands up for that. So I'm looking for a different proposal. Councillor French, what is it and the reasons for doing so? Thank you.
Yeah, I recommend refusal, loss of agricultural land and detrimental effect to Fenland's landscape. Is that enough?
That is exactly what I was thinking about if you hadn't said anything, but there we go. So yeah, I feel those reasons are sufficient for me to ask for a seconder of that. Have you got a seconder? Well, I'm happy to second that. Or Sydney, do you want Sydney? Councillor Miffordin, for the record, not myself, will second it then. So we've got a proposal to go against officer recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Miffordin, Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
It's an unanimous decision, Chairman.
So that application has been refused. So that only leaves me for saying thank you for attending. This concludes today's business, and I declare the meeting closed at 15:30. That's 3:30, and the next meeting will be on the 4th of February 2026. Thank you.